Welcome to the latest edition of the MBN Iran podcast. We're talking today, we're almost at day 150 of this war, and to discuss everything that's happening, helicopter from the broad strategic view what's going on, and right from on the ground with me today are Leila Bazi, the editor-in-chief of MBN, and Abu Bakr Siddiq, who is senior correspondent for us. I'm going to launch right into it because there's a lot to cover today. Abu Bakr, there was a war that began on February 28th. The lines were pretty clear. It was the US and Israel attacking Iran. And here we are some months later, and it's almost unrecognizable. Different parties are there. Today's news is about the Houthis. Who would have known back on February 28th that that's what we'd be talking about today, or that there would still be a war going on? So I'm going to just ask you, Abu Bakr, how has the strategic picture in the region changed between February 27th, the day before the war began, and now toward the end of July?
Thank you, Andres. I think one of the most notable characteristics of the reignited war is that Iran is targeting primarily Arab countries. It has gone beyond the Gulf nations to regularly target Jordan, another Arab country. So it's becoming more, we know that in the Middle East there are big fault lines. One of the big fault lines is, of course, the sectarian divide between the Shia and the Sunni. The other one is the national divide between the Arabs and the Persians and the Turks, the big nations of the Middle East. So Iran has so far, a lot of Arab analysts are pointing out to the fact that Iran has not targeted Israel. Instead, it is only targeting predominantly Sunni Arab nations. So that is a big development. I think a lot of wars, they begin for some reasons, but then wars have a course of their own. They evolve into new conflict. So the new conflict is becoming between the Arab nations and Iran, because Iran has not even spared Oman, which was the friendliest Arab country, which mediated between the United States and Iran, which was always friendly to Iran. It was holding in-depth discussions with Tehran about the future of the Strait of Hormuz, how to manage it. And Iran has consistently fought targeted ships that were passing through the Omani water, which is considered Oman sovereign territory. They had already closed the middle line. We are living in unprecedented times. We are living in unpredictable times.
And isn't it suicide? Why would they do that? Why would Iran, it has the potential to have the sympathy and solidarity with the entire Muslim world, right? We're the victim. That could have been their narrative. How on earth do they benefit? What could the strategy possibly be to, as you said, be attacking Arab countries and making enemies of potential friends?
Well, I think overplaying their hand might explain it, because I think the Iranian policy, the policy to conclude war or make peace, is in the hands of the IRGC generals, who are hardline, who think that they have demonstrated their ability to fight a war, who were not happy with some parts of the MOU or broadly in discussions with the US or negotiations with the US. So I think this is a deliberate strategy. The IRGC was trying to demonstrate that they wanted to push for the international recognition by the US primarily, that they control the Strait of Hormuz and they can do whatever. They can charge fees or take tolls or something. That's their strategy. But I think they are overplaying it. I think the mood is changing in many nations, and this is not in Iran's national interest. I'll give you one example. Iran shares a very long, volatile border with Pakistan, which is a Sunni majority country, which has after Iran, which is the largest Shia population. But Pakistan yesterday issued a very strong warning against the Houthi attacks on Saudi Arabia. Pakistan clearly said that they will, if needed, they will use force to protect the shipping lanes. According to this mutual defense agreement, any attack on Saudi Arabia can be considered an attack on Pakistan. So things are moving fast. Turkey is also moving in the same direction. We also have to say, look at the defense spending in the Gulf. I think a lot of the Gulf nations are doubling down or buying more weapons. If Iran's strategy was to wean away or separate Gulf allies from the United States and show to them that your alliance with the United States is not paying off, it's not keeping you safe, I think it has failed, because the Gulf nations now realize that how important it is for them to have an American security umbrella, and they are diversifying. So in the long term, I think Iran has done more damage than, escalation is always a big gamble. And I think gambles do not often pay off very well in wars.
Leila, I mean, you've been on the ground recently. How does this all play out in reality on the ground?
Before I go to my recent visit to Beirut, I want to comment on what Abu Bakr said. The Iranians do not want to attack again on the Israelis, so they shifted to the Arab countries, which is a very important point. And Hezbollah are staying silent. So there was a test. So what we call in Arabic, Tawhid al-Sahat, so the uniting the arena. So they shifted from Lebanon to the Houthis. This is what I think the transformations that happened recently, adding, because the Houthis were silent. They were not even part of this war for a period of time. We are over than 140 days into this war. The Houthis didn't take this part. The last 2 weeks, this is the transformation. And again, the decisions making are happening in Tehran. To your point, Abu Bakr, and they are focusing now on the Arab world.
And also, if I may add, I think we also have to pay attention to the economic impact on the Muslim world, particularly Muslim majority countries like in South Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Egypt in the Arab world, in North Africa, Morocco. A lot of these countries have very large expatriate populations working in the Gulf countries, and their remittances are a very important part of their national GDPs. In billions of dollars, these people who work there, they send money back to their families, but overall they contribute billions of dollars to their national economies every year, which is a very important revenue stream for these countries. So these countries might, if insecurity in the Gulf escalates, these countries will be forced to act in their national interest. We yesterday saw that Turkey also issued a very strong warning to the Houthis. So the international waterways is not such a simple issue that you can, somebody, IRGC can decide one day to close the Strait of Hormuz or open it. It in fact, it impacts the entire global economy. It impacts oil prices, they are rising rapidly. It impacts trade, it impacts the national economies of countries, and if countries, nations have their security forces, they have militaries, they spend all their defense spending is geared towards protecting their national interests.
So the name of the game is leverage for Tehran then, right? Leverage through the Strait of Hormuz, leverage, it seems now, through the Houthis, Bab al-Mandab. Let's talk about Lebanon. Leverage in terms of Lebanon as well, Leila?
You have in the country two parallel things. What's happening on the upper level and what's happening with the people. Before I go to tell you what's happening in the field, I want to go just to stop on the visit of President Aoun. This is the first visit by a Lebanese president to the White House since 2009, which is something huge. So 17 years since anybody from this level really entered the Oval Office. President Aoun did walk with the tightrope. What does this mean? He came asking for essential things like the American support to the Lebanese army. An army already, the American has already invested in, and they were disappointed about the result that the Lebanese army did, and they voiced that many times. So, but what the American did is they combined the security thing as well with reforming as well of the government. So these are two different fights. So the president came with something. The American told him that these two things are one. So this is also the reality of things and the negotiation here. At the same time, at the same day when President Aoun was meeting President Trump, the Lebanese army did go inside the pilot zones in Western Zawtar al-Gharbiyya. The thing that we heard from our internal resources, there's nobody there to observe. There was some kind of a mechanism in the deal between the Lebanon and Israel that to have somebody supervising, verifying, who's gonna see what's really happening inside the pilot zones. They floated the country of Italy, and Israeli were with it, and then they said, no, we don't want Italy to be the party that can verify what's happening. And the Americans were not that much enthusiastic to take this role. So technically, the Lebanese army is there, and the Israelis are there, and there's nobody seeing what's going on. And it was clear, and this is what President Aoun came with to President Trump, he wants to avoid any clash between the LAF, the LAF, the Lebanese Army Forces, and Hezbollah, because he doesn't want to take it into a civil war. So this is what when I say this is on the level of negotiation,
Yep.
but what's happening, it's a completely different thing.
And let's talk about Syria. I mean, just to throw a bit of a grenade, if you will, in the middle of all this.
Oh, yeah.
So how sensitive is that, right? And I mean, Lebanese history, supplying of arms from Iran. Tell us about that. Talk us through that, Leila.
Syria was always the back road for Hezbollah to get their ammunition, their weapons, and all that. But Trump inside the Oval Office said something for the ears of the Arab world and the Western world is something, but the ears but the sound of it on the Lebanese ears is completely different. He did say, about President Sharia wants to go in and do something about Hezbollah. If we stopped at this sentence, because in Washington it passes without a ripple, and in Beirut it lands, I want to say like a bell. Let me tell you
100%.
why. Yes,
100%.
Syrian army entered Lebanon in 1976, and it withdrew in 2005, and only after the assassination of Rafi al-Hariri. But for the Lebanese, they hear occupation, because for the Lebanon, it was a Syrian occupation. It was not somebody doing something or helping another country. So these are two different things. And Ashara plainly said that I don't want to go there. He has different things or different type of relationship with Lebanon. And then the second day we hear that the Syrian did stop a shipment that's coming through the border, destination, not know from where, of course from Iran, but how did it go to Syria, that's coming to Lebanon to support Hezbollah. And this is, by the way, we were the first one who reported on that. So Syria still plays a very important role. But what is the role? I think this is the big question.
That's Abu Bakr. Let's talk about Iraq as well. I mean, this is, again, I just want to point out that we're not talking very much about Iran and the US right now, or Iran and Israel even. Let's just pause and ponder the fact that this far into the war, we're focusing on different countries, many of which don't even border on Iran, right? And that's where the war, in a sense, the fallout from the war is being fought. So Iraq, I mean, clearly a supply line. How is that going to play into this?
Iraq, under its current prime minister, Zaidi, has clearly tried to distance itself from Iran. Zaidi famously made his first visit to Washington, to the White House, instead of going to Tehran, although I think he was pressured. I think there is a lot of pressure inside Iraq on disarming the PMU, the pro-Iran militias. So I think Iraqis really know. And again, there is this question of sectarian loyalty versus national loyalty. And I think for the Kurds also, Iran showed that Iran has very little tolerance of Kurdish nationalism. It first threatened the Kurdish leadership of Iraq against supporting any Kurdish uprising against Iran, and then it targeted the Iranian Kurdish factions that are based in northern Iraq. Iran has unfortunately adopted this policy of isolation, of posing as a very hardline regional power. I mean, even it used Khamenei's funeral to send messages, very strong messages to countries in the region. The Saudi delegation, it was received in a certain way. They famously invited both the Taliban and the anti-Taliban Afghan opposition to the funeral, which was a big setback, a big embarrassment for the Taliban, who had cooperated with Iran on preventing the Islamic State or Daesh from attacking Iran from Afghan territory. The Taliban had not undermined Iran's security. In fact, the Taliban at the end were the only big trading partner for Iran. They think that they are the victors, and the victors deserve to take it all. And I think that attitude, unfortunately, will create more enemies than friends for Tehran.
Prime Minister Ali Zaidi already now is in Tehran. I just learned from our reporter Mustafa Saadoun from Baghdad, who lives near the international airport of Baghdad, that he saw the presidential plane leaving the airport, and it was escorted by military jets in Iraq, because per Mustafa and his insights and the information that he got, that Ali Zaidi is being threatened. And the important part and I think weird part is these jets did not stop on the borders of Iraq. They went inside Iran with Ali Zaidi. I'm not sure what's going to happen today. What does this mean? But this is something after the visit of Ali Zaidi to the Oval Office, to the US. Now he's in Tehran. So what he's holding with him as messages or as needs or as asks to Tehran, that remains to be seen.
Well, kudos to your team and the access that your MBN journalists have. That's a really interesting development. You know, Abu Bakr just finished up by talking about winners and losers. And that's where I want to bring you in, Leila. You know, war, does it have winners or losers? Who can say it? It's obviously the case when it comes to on the strategic level. But you were just there. People of Lebanon, you were there, you spent time with family, friends, and so on. Tell us about what you saw. What's it like on the ground to be, again, still kind of at the mercy of these big global conflicts?
You feel that everybody is under a test. It's no victory in here. Like, you feel everybody is living day by day. The political parties, the government on their level, it's a test. The people, it's a test because they need to connect and communicate together. And you hear, I heard it inside the official corridors, behind the scenes, with the people. There's a new narrative they're trying to throw out there, because there is no victory. There's our losers, when I'm talking about Lebanon. The new narrative they are trying, it's not disarming Hezbollah, is in a way is controlling, or let's put it that, freezing, neutralizing, because disarming, the word by itself intimidates Hezbollah in a way. So they're trying to turn around it because they think, I'm talking about the government level, that Hezbollah and the community, it's part of the society. And the surprising part, that what I saw, I'm being a person from the South and from this community as well, the communities are divided. They are not all Hezbollah. Hezbollah is not all the Shia in the country. And this is what I think the government is trying to tell the whole world, and to tell even the citizens inside Lebanon, because there is a division. And you hear now voices speaking about federalism, about breaking down the country into small bits and pieces. So actually, to your question, there's no victory. It's a test.
And what does Gen Z talk about? You know, they wake up in the morning and go about their day and see everything going on around them and in the headlines, but living the headlines. When you talk to people who are born in a year beginning with a 2, what are they thinking about their future?
Oh, there's no thinking the future for them. Either leave the country, I live day by day. There's no a third option for that. And the country, even though it's in war, you cannot enter a place without reservation, and it's fully booked. The economy is bad, the people are struggling, but this is the survival mode. They're living day by day. I'm not sure if it's a good norm anymore.
If I may add, I think like this is a very important issue, the youth bulge in the Muslim societies, in the Arab societies, because predominantly a lot of our societies are now made of youth, people between the ages of 15 and 30 or 35.
Right.
They make the majority of the population in those countries.
It's over than 60%. Yeah.
Exactly. And that has a lot of implications. That has a lot of implications for policies in the future. That has a lot of implications for war and peace. For example, Iran built its power throughout the Middle East through its proxies, which are its primarily Shia militias. There are all some Sunni allies of Iran too. So if there is a war of attrition and this goes on, I mean, this youth can become the cannon fodder for these wars.
They can. And they can also topple governments. I mean, in the headlines this week are the cockroach protests in India, and they're all young people.
Yeah,
and
they're
no matter
students.
how
They're
popular
students.
Modi may be after over a decade in power, I mean, we've seen it. Frankly, we saw it in Iran in 1979. I mean, the power of young people to just throw all the cards up in the air and create change is fascinating. Did you see that happening in Lebanon?
But also, it can be also interpreted as well differently, because when you oppress and you suppress and they are living under wars, automatically they will become another radical people, radicalized, because they will not know the difference who caused all this. At the end, things blend and dissolve, and then how they are living is the impact. Something needs to be done for this young generation to understand who was the cause of that, so will not history repeat itself.
And who's going to do that?
The responsible journalism.
Yep. It's, this whole war is going to, in just over a month's time, it's going to be 6 months since it started. I'm curious from both of you, where do you think we're all going to be? Where is the region going to be? Where is Lebanon going to be? But not just Lebanon, a month from now, by the end of this year. Just curious what your take is.
The MOU also offered great promise and an alternative future for the Middle East, because in MOU there was the possibility of more than $300 billion of investments by the Gulf Arab nations in Iran was discussed. Imagine if even half of those investments are ever made, the region can truly transform. Middle East, South Asia, these parts of the world are the parts of the world where there is the least amount of regional cooperation. I think for a lot of regions in the Middle East, the European model can be the right model. And unfortunately, this war will force a lot of countries to cooperate, but maybe not on the scale, but maybe we were already seeing early signs of new pipelines being discussed, new energy corridors being discussed and financed and planned. There is opportunity for diplomacy. There is also opportunity for peace building. I think all the countries need to come together. I think the problem, the weak link is that countries that are leading the diplomacy, such as Qatar, they do not have the military muscle to back it up. And then, of course, globally on a larger level, China is not stepping up.
About a month from now, it's going to be 6 months since this war started. The Middle East is being rearranged. The power dynamics are changing, the alliances, the geography, everything is kind of on the table. And I'm curious, Abu Bakr, what do you think? How are things going to be looking differently a month from now, by the end of the year, in the near future? How is the tectonic plates are shifting? How is it playing out in your mind?
Well, I think predicting the future is not an exact science, but predicting it in the Middle East is the most difficult part. But I would say that I think for all parties returning to the MOU framework, going to the temporary ceasefire. Some countries are pushing for it, a 10 days pause where they can return to negotiations. That will be a good beginning because escalation has no end. It will lead to more conflict and more destruction and more grave economic consequences for everyone.
For me, Andres, is like for the last few years we've been hearing in Washington and in the Middle East, the new Middle East. What is the new Middle East? What's going to happen next? I don't think this new Middle East is about redrawing borders. It's about who's going to hold the gates. Now we heard that there is maybe it's going to be a nuclear enrichment for Saudi Arabia with certain conditions. Not sure if it's going to happen or not. A Lebanese president after decades not being inside the Oval Office. There's over than 40 memorandum with Iraq. And there is the big thing that the fight that started for something then ended up because of the corridors of Hormuz. So before we had nations tries to have help to control their borders. Now who's gonna hold the gate? Who's gonna protect themselves from the inside? And I think this is the new test.
It is the new test. And we have a lot of gates to see whether they're going to open, close, stay open, or stay shut. And thank you for your time today. And I look forward to picking up on this soon to see how accurate our predictions were and where the gates will be.